Charles Leclerc's controversial statement after the Azerbaijan GP 2025 was not just a criticism of Hamilton. It was an open warning that highlights structural cracks within Ferrari. Are we witnessing the principle of the collapse of the Scuderia or the prelude to an internal war without return? The 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix should be a consolidation opportunity for Ferrari. The team arrived in Baku with positive signals after the first races of the year, and an urgent need to demonstrate internal order and cohesion before an increasingly adjusted grille. Throughout the weekend, both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were competitive, especially in race rhythm. But what seemed like a quiet strategic day ended up becoming an exhibition of exposed internal fractures without shame before the entire world. It all started in the last third of the race. The situation was clear. Leclerc marched 8th, right in front of Hamilton, and both were trapped behind the Racing Bulls with Liam Lawson as an immediate objective. Ferrari detected that Hamilton's tires, cooler, could offer him an advantage to attack and, potentially, overcome the cars that were ahead. Then, from the wall, they made a decision that seemed sensible from the point of view of the team strategy. They ordered Leclerc to let their partner pass, but with a strict condition. If Hamilton failed to advance, I should return the position before the checkered flag. It was a direct order designed to benefit the team together, not a particular pilot. During the following turns, Hamilton tried, but failed to specify any overtaking. The Racing Bulls maintained a solid defense, and Ferrari's possibilities of climbing positions were quickly dissipated. The order to restore the 8th position to Leclerc arrived in the last round, as agreed. From the radio, Riccardo Adami, Hamilton engineer, was clear: let Charles forward. He is a second and a half of you and is the last round. At the same time, Brian Botzi, a Leclerc engineer, informed his pilot that the change of position should occur in the main line before crossing the goal. But what happened next was as subtle as explosive. Hamilton reduced the speed, but he did it in the last meters of the main line, so marginally that he prevented Leclerc completing the overtaking. It went from 340 km per hour at about 184 km per hour just before the finish line. But it wasn't enough. Leclerc crossed the line just 0.464 seconds behind his partner. From the outside, it seemed an act of symbolic compliance, a way of saying, I fulfilled the order without really doing it. In practice, Hamilton did not return the position. That exact moment, with both cars crossing the goal in a sequence that seemed premeditated, marked a before and after in the relationship between the two pilots. What should have been a technical exchange of positions became a visible displacement. And not only among colleagues, but against the entire Ferrari structure, which was portrayed as an entity unable to enforce its own decisions. The most disturbing was the emotional context in which this happened. Baku is one of the most challenging circuits in the calendar. Urban, narrow, with long lines and critical braking areas. Concentration and discipline are essential, and trust between pilot and wall is fundamental. In that environment, any rupture of agreement not only implies a loss of points, but a deep damage to internal work dynamics. Ferrari, who historically has valued order, hierarchy, and absolute compliance with technical decisions, witnessed how his most experienced pilot, a 7-time world champion, acted with an independence that touched disobedience. It was not a communication mistake. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a measured action, executed with precision such that it left no doubt about intentions. When descending from the car and heading to the media, Leclerc made it clear that what happened had not only been a lack of courtesy on the track. It was a direct violation of the internal standards of the team. There are rules that we know we have to comply, and today these rules were not respected. That phrase was a missile directed to the nucleus of the Ferrari structure. He did not speak only of a circumstantial agreement between pilots. He talked about an internal trusted system that had failed. What makes these words even more significant is the time they occur. Ferrari is not in crisis of results, at least not in absolute terms. It has a competitive car, a very high-level pilots, and, in theory, a technical leadership strengthened by years of restructuring. But it is precisely in these contexts of superficial stability where real conflicts sprout more strongly. When everything is expected to work, cracks are more visible. And Leclerc, with his statement, was responsible for showing the world exactly where they are. Leclerc has been building its place in Ferrari for years. It has been the face of the Renaissance, the symbol of the new era. And now, with a partner like Hamilton by his side, he was facing the opportunity to consolidate himself as the true moral leader of the team. But what happened in Baku changes the dynamics. There is no tacit hierarchy anymore. There is no blind trust. What remains is a forced coexistence between two figures that compete not only on the track but also by the soul of the team. The dynamic between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton is not that of a veteran teaching a young talent. It is that of two natural leaders who compete for the same territory. Both want to be the internal reference. Both believe they are right. And the most complex of all is that both have valid arguments. Leclerc has been Ferrari's face for years, the pilot who crossed times of frustration, strategic errors, and failed projects. Hamilton, meanwhile, arrived with the status of living legend, not to learn, but to impose his vision and seek title number 8, one that considers his right. In this context, the Azerbaijan incident was more than a disobedience of a team order. It was a demonstration of power. A movement that sends a very clear message from Hamilton. You are not willing to play in the background even in the least. Although it was the 8th position, what was at stake was the principle of authority. And when refusing to return the position, even if he did it in a technically ambiguous way, Hamilton made it clear that his decisions in the race are not completely subordinated to the wall. In addition, the current context of the championship does not help to calm the waters. Ferrari needs points. McLaren firmly dominates the championship. Mercedes stalks consistency, and Red Bull, although in crisis, still represents a real threat. In that scenario, each unit lost by internal disputes is a wasted opportunity. And when the collective approach is lost, even the best car becomes an ineffective tool. The question that Maranello survives after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix is not whether what happened between Hamilton and Leclerc was a specific mistake. It is much deeper. How is trust reconstructed when it has been publicly broken? Is it even possible? Ferrari's immediate future depends on how that question is answered. Because what is at stake is not just the internal harmony of your team. It is the viability of your 2025 project. Ferrari is in a paradoxical position. It has two of the most talented pilots of the grill, a competitive car and a technical base that has shown to be up to McLaren and Mercedes in certain paths. But at the same time, it faces an internal challenge that no aerodynamic update can resolve. Manage two leadership that collides in their way of understanding the team. Leclerc represents the vision of a Ferrari built around a long-term project. He has spent years in the structure, has suffered defeats, has led when the car was not up to it, and has established itself as the visible face of resurgence. For many in Ferrari, he is the spiritual heir of that historical identity that mixes passion, loyalty, and perseverance. But Hamilton did not come to Ferrari to be a squire. His record and mentality automatically place him in the center of any project. You don't have time to lose. He wants immediate results and is willing to force the limits, even within his own team, to get them. This is where the fracture occurs. Because modern Formula One demands a millimeter synchronization between pilot, engineers, and direction. And when one of the elements behaves independently, the entire structure suffers. If Hamilton continues to disobey even the guidelines of the wall, and if Leclerc continues to react with public statements that undermine the unity image, Ferrari will lose much more than points. He will lose his authority as a team. Director Frédéric Vasseur is now at a critical crossroads. You have to impose order without destroying the fragile balance that supports its two-star figures. If you decide to punish or admonish Hamilton, run the risk of losing tune with a champion who does not accept subordination. If you do not, validate the implicit message that in Ferrari there are unofficial internal hierarchies, where some can act outside the rules. It is a situation of high strategic risk. The next big prizes will be key. Ferrari will not only have to demonstrate competitiveness on the track, but also internal management capacity. The final scene of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix left a powerful image. Two Ferrari cars crossing the goal separated by less than half a second, but divided by a much deeper emotional distance. It wasn't just a stopwatch difference. It was a symbolic distance between two ways of understanding Formula One, between two pilots that compete with the same machinery, but that no longer seem to row towards the same destination. Should a pilot such as Hamilton have freedom to ignore orders if you consider that they are poorly raised? Do you have Leclerc reason when demanding that internal hierarchies be respected without exceptions? And what role should Ferrari assume when tensions between their stars begin to affect not only the results, but also the public perception of the project? At this point, you as a fan are not a passive spectator. You are an active part of this story. Because in Formula One, the narrative is not only defined by the results. The opinions, discussions, and questions that open in every corner of the paddock, in each forum, in each community of fans. And now, more than ever, those questions are on the table. What side are you? Do you think Hamilton acted with the intention of protecting his career or simply despised Ferrari's internal rules? Was Leclerc too emotional or simply said what everyone was afraid to admit? Can a team like Ferrari survive an internal storm of this magnitude without completely redefining its command structure? Let it know in the comments.